one thing you can do is get your kids to dedicate a blog or even a video log or an Instagram account dedicated to one particular subject that your child is interested in.
I'm Junaid Ahmed, host of Hacks and Hobbies podcast and a digital presence advisor at HumbleZone. This episode is brought to you by Home Studio Mastery. I launched a consultation and course program to help podcasters and course creators to create a space in their homes that will reduce the friction of creating content and appearing their best when showing up on camera. The pandemic gave us a lot of issues, but this one is here to stay. We're now so much closer to our audience thanks to video becoming more popular and affordable. I help guide folks who want to create Hollywood-worthy studios to not only capture great content, but also build more confidence, more authority, and be more comfortable in front of the camera. If I can do it, you can too. And with my help, you can do it faster. So if you'd like to learn more, visit homestudiomastery.com and how you too can create a home studio that brings out your personality, professionalism, and possibilities. Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. We're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life who want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. Today we get to speak with Jonathan Harris. He has experimented with and developed a method for creating marketable talent in each of his children. One of the keys for a teenage son or daughter was to develop something interesting that brings value to the world, and by leveraging the family's identity so they can exercise their own skills and gifts. Jonathan goes into details about how his household became a hothouse for growing unique talents in his children. The benefits are thus twofold, as both the family and the child gain from the child's uniqueness. He explains further how that works in a method that he dubs Parent Their Passion. Let's learn more as we discover the stories Jonathan shares in this episode. Jonathan, thank you so much for jumping onto the episode.
Thank you for having me on board here. Excited to share what we have to talk about today.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. I mean, when I saw that you're talking about Parent Their Passion, I mean, come on, that is friggin' awesome, because being a father of 4 kids now, we've been teasing people that we have a new baby coming, and the baby's here.
Yay!
Arrived June 16th. So excited, and so excited to have you here, man. So just to start off, let's walk down memory lane. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Okay, so back in the day, it's over a decade ago now, my oldest son, who is now 24, so he's 24 years old, and he was 12, I was 11 and a half, or just around that age. And at that time, we were doing things already a little bit different. I was able to work from home with, at that time, a large corporation. So I was able to work from home in a nice little small semi-rural community in Northern California. And to go with that, we're also homeschooling. This is all part of the lifestyle that we wanted. And if people are familiar, even in the homeschooling community, things are done very differently from family to family, which is part of the attraction, right? It's like, instead of a fast food, right? Yeah, you just you like your stuff more with more spice, less spice, more crunch, more outdoor. You can do all of that. And at that point in time, like a lot of men going through career changes, it seems like a lot of people will hit a wall, and to go to the next level, you realize, oh shoot, in order for me to stay in this industry, and in my particular field, I saw it coming, and I knew in order to stay in the game, it was the tech field. I was a project manager, and in order to stay in the game, everybody above me was having to travel at least 3 weeks out of the month. It didn't even matter, how much experience you had. That was part of the trend. And I knew that layoffs were coming unless I was willing to sign up. And just about then, My kids are hitting the teen years. We love the place we were going to. We did not.
Yeah.
We live in California, but of course, all the tech stuff is down in San Francisco Bay Area. And I've
Hmm.
lived there before, and we did not want to go back there.
Yeah.
So we had to make some choices. And of course, I'm reading all the self-help books, right? And I see you like Gary Vee. So all these guys are starting to come online, and there are some really, I mean, as you can laugh about it, but
Hmm.
that's what you need at that point in life.
We
They're
do.
telling you drop and give me 10, 20, whatever it is, be a man, and when it was good. And I applied some of that stuff in the job. But one of the things that intrigued me is it would tip a lot of times they would finish with, it was usually a side comment where the author
Mm.
would say, I wish I had known this sooner. I wish I had started sooner. And you keep hearing this because a lot of times they say, a lot of these things you can do. But of
Yeah.
course, if you have all these obligations, which I did, I had kids that I love, I had a wife that I love. And then I got to thinking, wait a second, why am I going to repeat this? Why am I going to have my kids repeat the same path I took? I went to
Yeah.
college and I had a good experience. Don't get me wrong. I had a good experience,
Hmm.
but I wound up in an industry doing a career that wasn't my plan. That wasn't my choice, which a lot of people will tell you. And that's okay up to a certain point. And then you hit
Yeah.
that age, you're like, oh shoot, if I had been more intentional, I could have accumulated skills that made more sense to my long-term goals, or at least to my
Mm.
personality. So, wrestling with that. And then I got this into my head. I'm going to do things different with my kids. I'm like, I don't want them on the same path. And so there was a trigger. This had been building up, but there was one moment
Mm.
that to me, it just kind of it just came together in my mind. I was in my home office, and my 12-year-old son would drop in, inside the office. And we typically at that time would go to the library and reserve a bunch of books and bring them home. And we had figured how to game the system, because if you get a child, each one even the baby has a card you can bring out 20. So
That's
you got a
right.
whole library at home, pretty much. It's awesome. And so we would reserve it online. And I told my son, hey, have you read Sherlock Holmes books? And it's like, no, I haven't.
Mm.
It's like, oh, you got to read those. This is a great detective. He's just about that age. I just remembered that I enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
And it's okay, go ahead and reserve it. I'm gonna go get my cup of coffee. Go ahead and do that. So I go to the other room, come back with my cup of coffee. My son goes, okay, Dad, I got them. It's like, great. We'll go to the library and we'll pick them up, next time Mom goes down there. And he says, no, Dad, you don't understand. I have them all. I was like a little confused. It was just the beginning of the Kindle revolution, right?
Mm.
Where, you could read books online, but it's always klutzy. You had to find a
Yeah.
PDF. So long story short is he got them all downloaded, the entire collection. And I think within the week or 2 weeks top, he had read them all.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
to me, it was a click moment. It was a game changer, because I realized, yeah, it's always nice to have hard copy books. I mean, it's always more enjoyable. But realistically, if you're consuming a lot of information, you do enjoy having digital copies because you can churn through them so quickly.
Yeah.
And so my kids were more used to that than I was. And at that point, I realized, oh my goodness, we're going to run into the obligatory college reading stuff, because we're screaming through literature and stuff, right? And of course,
Yeah.
this is Sherlock Holmes, and I realize most people don't consider it great literature, but in my opinion, it's actually better than most great quote great literature.
Yeah,
But
it
that's
is.
that's a debatable point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, we're gonna get into the dark material. I'm like, this is stupid. I remember going through college, and I'm sure, some people liked it. I had already gone through that schooling before, and I'm like, oh, we're going to get into the dark stuff. And I'm like, my son doesn't need to read this. I mean, why are we doing this education? So
Yeah.
I realized this is all about him being a slave to the curriculum. Right.
Right.
And even though we were homeschooling, we were a little bit following the knowledge bucket ideas, at this age, you need to know this and that. I said, we're going to flip this around. We're going to make the curriculum be a slave to my son's future.
Mm.
And it may sound like it's the same thing, but it isn't, because once you understand your child's personality, his strengths, his weaknesses, which as a parent you have a unique insight to that,
Yeah.
then you can start playing around much more deliberately when it's like, we're gonna accelerate and do calculus soon, which we didn't do, by the way, but I know some families have done that. Or we're gonna really gonna go deep into history, or we're really gonna go deep into science, or some other
Mm.
kind of combo. We already had the habit of, like, we'll be halfway through a textbook or equivalent, and we're like, you know what, we got extracted all the value out of 2 chapters, and the rest of it, no shame. we toss it into
Just
into the
skip it.
dustbin or pawn it off onto another family. So the whole idea is this serving our son's future, which is a future, of course, is nebulous. So it's an ongoing conversation. And then from there, I realized, you know what kind of is frustrating about life is that you get on this career where you're quote good academically at something. So you get on. So if you're okay, so if you're good at something, then of course the solution they're going to tell you is you go to the next level. Well, why?
Yeah. Why?
At the end of the road, is that what you want to be? Let's say you're a really good musician. And I met actually a young adult friend of mine who was so kind of bitter about it. And he was laughing. It's like, he was a good musician, but he said, I didn't want to become a professional musician. So I kept being pushed artificially to go to the next level, went to college for a musical degree. He says, you know what? I realized a year before I finished, this is stupid for him because I don't want to be a symphony. I don't want to be a player in a symphony on a bus traveling. I hate it all.
Yeah.
I hate it all. It's like, it's something I just want to do personally, but not for a living. And I didn't come to terms with it. He eventually became a copywriter, right? Which has an artistic side to it, but very different.
Yeah.
And that's how I think a lot of people are in, is they, even with their kids, you just go onto this treadmill without thinking of the long-term consequences, because you invest so much time and effort, and then frustrations can develop from that. But what happens if you started sooner and you discovered and you pivoted and you wrestled with it organically before it becomes, 18-year-old crisis, what I do with my life, and then finally a post-college crisis, then eventually a midlife crisis. I'm talking career-wise. It doesn't. Yeah. I'm not solving all the problems of the world. I'm talking just a sphere of life, especially for men, that's all-encompassing. You sit at one point, you're sitting at your desk, you're 40, and you're like, why am I here? And you're like, I'm here because I had to do this next certification, and now this is where I am. Had I started sooner. So that's what we did with our kids. We really started hijacking everything. And I borrowed ideas from the adult world. And of course, some things don't make sense for children.
Yeah.
But other things do if you just tweak it slightly. And at that time, I was really fascinated with the 10,000 hours concept. And so I named, in fact, I still have my site out there, 10K to Talent. If people want to go check it out. I got all my blog posts. I started documenting what worked, what didn't work. Nice. The funny moments, the high moments, and a lot of things actually worked, which is amazing. And I called it to 10,000 hours, but eventually a coach told me, it's like, dude, parents don't want to hear 10,000 hours of work. They're already overwhelmed. And I'm like, of course, my idea wasn't to add to the work. It was to say that by the time you're 18, or maybe you've logged in already 6,000 hours of whatever the field is you want to go. So when you leave, you have this liftoff already. It's not like you're just beginning to, oh, you know what? I wanted to live on the beach and become a professional surfer. So you think about that at 18. Well, it doesn't have to be too late, but it probably is too late, because everybody else has started at 12 or 14.
Right.
Then you got to put food on the table, or you do decide to do it, but then that means you can't get married. All the girls like, you're a bum on the, you've got this. What happens if you come out at 18? And so maybe you're good enough already that you figured out a way to make a living at it. And maybe you're not making a fortune yet, but yeah, you can do that instead of being a barista.
Yeah.
So you're accumulating that knowledge, that industry
at a much younger age,
a
lot earlier,
without the crisis.
Man, I love all of that. So amazing story, amazing start. And I love, you documented it on the blog site. So it's available. Check it out, because information is still information. It's learned experiences that you've documented. People can, take away from that. But what I really liked is that you're literally hacking it by giving that early chance to your children.
Yes.
It's amazing.
And you know what? As a dad to dad here, it's extremely satisfying.
Oh my God.
Because you can do it better. You can literally do it better. One, and again, using the fast food analogy, yeah, I get it. If you go to fast food, you're going to get your calories and you go. You're not going to starve. It's going to give you your basic nutritional needs, right?
Yeah.
But everybody knows that going to your friend's place where he does this awesome barbecue, or you're going to another friend's place who does this awesome, spicy dish or whatever you have, or another one is a complete opposite. That's
Yeah,
a completely different experience.
it is.
And that's the same with education, is once you realize you can get in there and do it 3 4 5 times better
Hmm.
than you would in a traditional schooling environment, simply because you have control over it. But it's not just
Yeah,
that you have control and say, okay, we're just going to borrow those books, go home and do the same. No, you're actually asking the question, and it's an ongoing conversation. Is this accelerating my child or not? Most of the time you're
I
saying,
love that.
is this accelerating my child so they can pass the test XYZ? Maybe in your family,
Hmm.
you say, we have a particular historical background where on my wife's side there is like a World War II hero, so we spent a little more time on World War II.
Mm.
And that kid could be potentially dark, but it's like a specialty, so we're going to spend more time. We can do that and
Yeah,
spend minimal time in another area. You cannot do that if you're on a treadmill with everyone else.
I love that. And what's cool is that so you started 10 years ago where your oldest was 12.
Yeah, it was over more than
And
10 years ago now.
and
Yeah.
right, so what's beautiful is that my oldest is 12 right now.
Awesome.
Right. So and what's cool is that he just finished his 6th grade and going to middle school.
Yeah.
So instead of sending him to the public middle school, we found a private one, which is in line with our religion. It's in line with, smaller class sizes, more attention from the from the teacher. I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. So I'm glad
It's a
my
lot more
wife.
organic, right? It's a
It's a
user
lot more
population.
organic. Yeah, yeah. It's a smaller school altogether as well. And what's cool is that my wife, these are all my wife's decision. I was like, you're the boss, right? I didn't finish school. I finished high school. I went to 6 years of community college. I don't have any degrees whatsoever, but I love learning. And what you said about, taking one route and just being stuck in it, I was like, I don't want to be stuck in that. So I've hopped around different areas of expertise, and I love what I do as a user experience designer. Now, 20 years later, I'm like, okay, what if I can do something different? And that's where this beekeeping and the podcasting came into
Yeah.
the birth. And I'm like, I'm learning so much more. And even though I've been following entrepreneurs for the past 15 years, like Tony Robbins and Frank Kern and all these amazing folks, I'm like, why am I not doing this? And it just finally clicked at 42 because that's the universe's answer to everything. I totally love, the route that you've gone to and being able to show them. And if you hadn't been consuming books, right, that's where the knowledge comes from. But like if it hadn't been consuming books, it would not have clicked. So every single one of us have to go through some kind of journey, some kind of personal or self-development to find the little nuggets of information that are hidden between texts of pages.
Well, that, and I think, you said you're 42, right? Is that what you said?
I was
You was.
42 in 2018.
Right there.
That's when this all started. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were telling me that. But there's something to that, because I
Hmm.
think and that's why that age, you're no longer that youthful person who's just going to put in the hours.
Yeah.
You're starting to see, okay, if I put in those hours, there's you see the bigger consequences of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to put it in, right? So, and of course, usually at that point, you're starting to see the tension. Your kids need you more, especially as they're getting older. They're moving out of the nurturing stage, which kind of ties into this parent their passion concept.
Hmm.
And really, the wife superpowers are kind of receding in the background. Usually they own kind of the nurturing phase years.
Mm.
But when you get into the teen years, and part of the influence of these ideas is I have friends who are slightly older than me, and especially at that time, and I was watching, some of them were just starting to hit college, or they were
Yeah.
just finishing high school. So you're starting to see I knew them early enough, in their early teens, and then all the way through high school and then in college, and you start seeing the long-term consequences. Some of them were good, and
Hmm.
some of them were not so good.
Yeah.
And some of them were slow train wrecks you see happening. You're like, oh, this is not going to, and it didn't finish well. So you're like, so your confidence as far as predictive abilities
Hmm.
starts to increase. Usually when you're young and 20 or 30, you have knowledge, but it's not experiential knowledge.
Right.
and then you're a little bit older and you start realizing, oh yeah, that promotion they're promising you, maybe it comes with a little extra cash, but now they're going to own you at night,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's not as straightforward as you
Mm-hmm.
think it is. It comes with complications.
Strings
And I think that's
attached,
why
right?
your boldness actually increases.
Yeah.
Your confidence in some ways is shattered a little bit. But at the same time, I think when it comes to your own children, it's like you have a chance, like in the lab, you say, you know what? I'm going to experiment because I already know what doesn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. You may not work, but you already know what doesn't work.
Right.
So you get this, and it's your own flesh and blood. So you're like, doggone it, I'm going to get in here and do this better, at least in this one area. And I
Yeah.
think you can. And that's the one message I want to tell people, especially dads. When your teens, their hormones start kicking in, that energy that can translate into bravado, a little bit of naughtiness, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of like, what they need is external affirmation from the outside world. They're starting to stop. They believe you to a
Yeah.
certain extent, but they say, well, of course, dad, you love me. Of course you can tell me I can do better. They start doubt, especially if they start doubting mom. Like mom is always, oh, it's the most beautiful picture. Oh, you're a sweetheart, and the old joke, on face
Mm-hmm.
only a mother can love. That's what they start
Yeah.
saying. Oh, shoot, I'm really not that beautiful, and your doubts start crowding in, and you need that external validation, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is a good thing.
It
That
is.
you're
It's
starting to
absolutely.
realize, you know what, I really need to. If people are going to tell me, I'm kind or I'm helpful or I'm smart at something, I want to know that it's genuine and they're not just flattering me or just trying to soothe my ego. And I think
Yeah.
there's a strong need. And if they do not get that, I think that's part of the reason why you see so much teenage um, angst. They start
Mm.
gnawing on their own bones. So they have all these potential, right? When they're younger, they don't
Yes.
actually have the potential. They can't actually drive a car. They can't actually weightlift big. They can't actually work through the night. They'll have meltdowns. They'll have
Yeah.
crying spells. But a teen can. Oh my goodness, they can work through the night obsessively.
Yes.
And but it can be a negative unless you latch them onto something.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you can. I mean, I have to go and flip off the light switch.
Like go to
Not even
sleep.
metaphorically. I have to say,
Yeah.
okay, it's time to power down. It's like you need to get outside and get some sun. I have one
Mm-hmm.
son. Well, at home, I have four kids left at home. My oldest at home right now is 16, and the next one down is 13, two boys.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a little bit of a gender difference with boys, especially. I gotta like make sure one of them, he's making money, he's making
Yeah.
cash, he loves it. He started off doing voice acting online, got some cash, got hooked on that. Then he found he can
Nice.
make a lot more money by doing podcast editing. And then from there, he's finding more stuff, right? And so the deeper in he goes, the better he gets at it, the more
Yes.
excited he gets by it. The money that he's making, and that's part of the concept here, is they take ownership. They buy the tools. We have a certain amount of guidance, but they're spending
Mm-hmm.
the money, so they take ownership of it,
Yeah.
and they just go. And sometimes it is obsessive, but
It
that's
is.
the beauty and the power of it. And as a
Yeah.
dad, I think the role, an analogy here is, and I think both, you have the male and female, right? They play such an important role in the development of a child. But I think there comes a point when the dad's like, when the kid wipes out the corner with his bicycle, skins his knee, the dad's like, yeah, now you know how fast you can take that corner,
That's
right?
right.
You
Yeah.
want, because you want to go faster. And
Mm-hmm.
when the kid is younger, they're just crying, then you're reassuring them. And of course, as a dad, you're reassuring them.
Yeah.
When they get 12, they don't want to be, of course they want sympathy, but only to a certain extent. They want to
Yeah.
hear is, man, you took that corner right to the edge, and
Yeah.
you found where that boundary is. I think next time you could do it faster or better if you take the corner, sooner over here, or do it
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
Watch a boy light up, because they've done something. They don't want you crying. I mean, unless it's serious. I'm not saying
No,
they go over
absolutely.
a cliff
Yeah.
and die. That's final.
That's what.
But but I think that's what they want. And we
They
have
want
those
that reassurance.
conversations. They'll try something, if it's whatever it is they're bringing to the world in a small way.
Yeah.
I'm telling them, you are probably going to meet some resistance, or you're going to do it wrong, or you're going to have the wrong tools, or you miscalculated socially. And I'd say that's okay, because now you know where the boundary is. That barrier is going to tell you Next time around, I need this tool. Next time around, I need to communicate better. Next time around, I have to agree not to take a gig with that particular person because I can't
Yeah.
stand them.
Yeah.
Next time around, I'm going to practice more.
They're
Whatever it
just,
is,
they're just,
that's going
yeah.
to give you the answer, and I have to give credit to a lot of these books, that tell these grown men, us grown men, it's like, stop being a whiny baby about it, complaining about your boss or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Get out there and put those reps in. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
we
what
want a
we're, yeah.
solution. I mean, don't get me wrong. We don't want to be trapped, but we want to
Right.
know
Right.
the way forward is like, okay, if you're trapped, you need to reverse engineer this. You've hit the boundary.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I teach my kids. You've hit the boundary. They don't want to hear your music. They don't want to hear you bring this thing. And so let's reverse engineer it. And they may be, well, I don't have enough experience. Okay, so they're worried about their experience. Probably legitimate. What can we do in this one particular area to boost their confidence or for you to show proof? When you get the teens involved in this conversation, it's like you're a coach. And one of my favorite things to tell my kids is like, they'll come to me and usually once they start going deep enough in it, they're not a clone of me.
No.
They're only a clone of me in the sense it's like, get up, I'm like a coach. And they'll say, well, I don't know how this works. I don't know either. Go find out.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, go figure it out. I love it.
No, I totally love that. It sparks so many questions in my mind, and I keep thinking. So my son is literally testing me every single boundary that he can, slam against. Essentially, like
Yeah.
they're so persistent too.
Yes.
Like I'll keep getting, because I mean, with thanks to technology, 10 years ago we didn't. I don't think we had the technology where they could be on a smartphone and we don't know what they're doing. Like now we have that tech where like you're getting requests, or can I download this app? Can I get 1 extra hour on this app? Can I do this? And can I do this? And it's just amazing what's possible in this world. So what I try to do is I've led them like, okay, here's a camera, go record some video for your own YouTube channel. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do YouTube channel. So they were really excited. They use a camera, and I was telling them, I'll edit the video for you. Of course, we don't have any time. 2 weeks go by. I'm like, how about I show you how to edit the video, right? So now
Yes.
he's editing his own video. He's recording videos.
And of course, he's taking ownership.
Yes.
Because if there's any flaws in it, which there's bound to be flaws in the beginning, or if he's too embarrassed to show it,
yeah,
then he's going to say, okay, I need to figure out this jump cut issue. I need to how to figure out this thing. And that's the beauty of it,
yeah,
because they own it. They did the work. And and you teach your kids, it's going to be ugly.
mm-hmm.
It's going to be ugly. So you're going to have to make a decision. Do you stop? Because sometimes you do legitimately. And there are times you say, you don't just pursue it. I mean, because anything can be improved, but do you want to? And if the answer is no, I'm just embarrassed because I'm not good at it. Well, then the answer is, well, then get good at it. And
Do more, yeah.
once they do it once or twice, their just confidence just goes through the roof.
It does. There was a book I was reading where this gentleman talks about how in Canada they were giving out positive tickets, so positive reinforcement, and the cops would basically go up to these teenagers like, "Hey, here's a ticket, positive ticket, because you helped somebody cross the road. You did something for somebody," and then they would tell them, "You are going to be somebody because if you keep this up." So this one kid, he's like, I'm not going to cash in this ticket. It's either they can go get a meal, go see a movie, or go. It's like, no, I'm going to keep this ticket and put it on my wall because an adult believed in me. It's like, holy smokes. So like these positive reinforcements. And that's what you're going after, right? Positive reinforcement, fail, try again kind of thing. I love it.
Yeah, it's a whole lab thing, because if you go in, and here's one of the things that's important is a lot of times kids might have big ideas, to use, I want to be a horse trainer, or I want to go to the moon. Okay, potentially, or typically they'll see something on TV or something glamorous, and it's not wrong in itself.
No.
But the problem is that the gap between to getting from then to there's a huge gap in their mind that can't cross, and that's being young. That's where you as a parent, that's why I call it parent their passion. You need to help them see that in between. So I think it's really important, because if you get the in between, you start getting that positive reinforcement. What can happen is that people will spend so much time developing a skill, a talent,
Yeah.
a hobby, but they've never had a reality check as to whether or not the world wants to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
So in a worst case scenario, I had a friend, an adult friend who I had known for a while. So it was a friend of my wife's. And all of a sudden in some conversation, I found out she was like a world-class violinist. I'm like, what?
Wow.
What's, because I was talking about some kind of event to be nice and blah, blah, blah. So then she proceeds to tell me that she went to Spain when she was young. She went to this top-notch world-class school. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm trying to process this thing. I knew nothing about, I mean, it was, we knew the husband and wife. And so I thought I knew enough about them. Okay. Long story short, this is like almost like the archetypal, where the parents had invested tons of money and time to get her to be really proficient in a musical skill. Promptly the day she finished, she never used it again. Now,
Wow.
here's what happened from a practical point of view. You don't know. I mean, the whole time you're paying teachers, you're paying them to teach you or even to listen to you. You have never tested the market to find out if people want to listen to you specifically. Not only that, you have never tested to find out that maybe they do want to listen to you, but they don't want to listen to you in the format that you think, meaning they don't want to listen to you in a recital hall. Maybe they want to listen to you somewhere else in a different context, in a different manner. All these things are complicated, but they've in 20, whatever, how many years of practice, they've never gone out and tested that. So I say, well, why don't you use it for birthday parties? Like, no, it's too sophisticated. People don't want violins, let's say, right? Which is kind of understandable. Well, why don't you do it here?
I don't know about that, because have you heard of Sterling?
Well, yeah. But remember, she does dancing though. See,
Right.
This is people want to see her dance, and now she's added stories, right? It's a very much Candy.
It is, yeah.
Beautiful girl dancing around. She's not just sitting there playing a violin. So, but that's an example. She's tested the market and found out they want a little storytelling, they want a little dancing, a little fantasy. But that's what I'm talking about. So the reality means, and then they realize they can't really play this instrument unless they move to, again, like this other friend was talking about, move to San Francisco, stay single for the rest of their life because they can only afford a shared apartment. And they're like, well, this is not a lifestyle I want.
That's not what
I can play violin for myself, right? Without investing.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to invest so much in your child without them having contact. What does it mean to bring value to other people? Because this is really, really important, to find a way, even if it's not for money, but it's genuine. You're not getting grandma telling you, you're not getting dad, you're not getting mom. They have to love you. You want to know somebody who doesn't owe you a favor, says, you know what? This is good work. I want more of it.
Yeah.
And if you can go in so deep with our educational system, is partly the blessing of living in such a wealthy culture, is that you can go on for so long without finding out that really nobody likes this work. But they might have liked the work. Had you tested it, you could have pivoted. You could have added, like Lindsay Stern, you could have added a little dancing if you're into that, but you don't know. But now all of a sudden at 24, you spent all this money. Now you feel like a failure. And that's the thing. They fall off a cliff. They feel their whole identity is shattered. And they've built up this huge persona that can't survive. And I think this is part of the anxiety that kids are feeling. Is like they invest so much time at getting good, genuinely good at it, but no one wants it in the shape that they have it in.
So essentially what you're saying is that you got to fail fast.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's good. Yeah.
Right? Fail fast. I mean, that's the mentality we have towards software development, towards app development. Fail fast with your idea so that you know what's working, what's not working. Come back, tweak it, come back again. I mean, in the entire YouTube industry, the entire YouTubers, they fail fast with that video. Like, okay, this video worked. This is not working. This is work. And then you just focus on the stuff that's working and getting you the positive feedback. So apply that same to our kids. Wow.
Yeah, and that's a good, and that's where the dad part comes in. I'm saying dads especially. My wife is involved too, but when it comes to dads have a particular knack of like, go as high up the tree as you possibly can, just when it's about ready to break. The mom's freaking out. I mean, which is understandable. That's why these kids stayed alive until they're 12. But now you're seeing the potential. Okay, we don't want to take them to the point where they're going to die. We don't want that.
Right.
But we want them to know this is where the boundary is. So
Yeah.
the fail fast is probably what I would say with older teens. And I am still smart enough as a dad to say, what we're gonna couch this in different terms. It's like,
Yeah.
this is where, okay, they're not saying yes to you. You want to come and do this thing, but they're hesitating. They're not answering. And so I have this conversation. Well, it's probably because they're not ready to accept whatever it is you're proposing to give to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they'll say, why do you think that is? And they say, well, whatever the answer is. And they say, well, how can we solve that
Yeah.
issue? And most of the time there is an answer. And sometimes there isn't. Sometimes there genuinely isn't. And then we say, okay, we really need to pivot dramatically on this because this is an issue. But a lot of times it's amazing how often there is a solution if you stop thinking in terms like failure. This boundary that we bumped up against doesn't mean that we're supposed to abandon everything. It just means now we've learned that we need to add something to it, or sometimes it boils down to communication. We've had those conversations where, I've had my kids and it's like, you need to be clear. It's like, yeah, dad. And then I was like, oh, holy cow, they want me to do this and this and this. And I said, you know what? You already agreed to this. You're going to have to, keep your word. Yeah. But next time around, now you know why.
Now you know why.
Now you know why. You want to say there's 3 revisions allowed only or something like that, right? And they assimilate that. So they're hearing you talking, and oh yeah, dad, right?
They're like, let me just get it done.
For real, I've been there, dude. But if they get this now when they're young, by the time they're 18 or 19 or 21, they're way bigger risk takers. All my kids are bigger risk takers than I was at that age because you're waiting by the phone to be discovered, so to speak. And that's not really how life works. I mean, to a certain extent, but most of the time, no, you're going to have to be the one putting yourself out there and accepting the fact that you might fail. But of course, you have to have a strategy because if you do hit a boundary, you can't just immediately say, okay, I'm dead. I'm done. I'm not going to even try anymore. It's like, no, that's not you have to have a belief that, and this is giving you partly the answer.
And that's where you can bring in analogies from video games, right? Okay, you're playing, what are the kids playing these days, right?
Well, Minecraft for the younger kids.
For the younger ones, and older ones.
I forget the other stuff, yeah.
Right, so, you asked a question, do you quit playing the game when you die? Like, no, we start over.
Now I know where they're hiding.
Exactly, so apply that to real life, right? I love it, man. Man, guys, we've been talking with Jonathan Harris here, and wow, time flies. We've been having some amazing conversations around sharing his journey and what got him started, and I just absolutely love that because I see myself in him because of the path that he's taken. And thank you so much, man. I see the motivations. I totally see it because those are the similar motivations I have for what I keep doing every day, for what I showing up. And teaching that to my kids at an early age, that hey, and the reason I take all these risks or do all these different things is to show them, hey, anything is possible if you really want to do it. Let's take a quick break, and then Jonathan will share with us 3 hacks to take away after the break. I'm Junaid Ahmed, host of Hacks and Hobbies podcast and a digital presence advisor at HumbleZone. This episode is brought to you by Home Studio Mastery. I launched a consultation and course program to help podcasters and course creators to create a space in their homes that will reduce the friction of creating content and appearing their best when showing up on camera. The pandemic gave us a lot of issues, but this one is here to stay. We're now so much closer to our audience thanks to video becoming more popular and affordable. I help guide folks who want to create Hollywood-worthy studios to not only capture great content, but also build more confidence, more authority, and be more comfortable in front of the camera. If I can do it, you can too. And with my help, you can do it faster. So if you'd like to learn more, visit homestudiomastery.com and how you too can create a home studio that brings out your personality, professionalism, and possibilities. Hey guys, welcome back to the episode. We've been talking with Jonathan Harris here, and it has been a fascinating chat, talking about our children, talking about their resiliency, their ability to totally, go into what they're passionate about. And I just love every single thing about it, because being a dad of 4 kids now, I got to think of all these things. And somebody was saying, somebody was talking about Web 3.0 the other day, and they're like, we don't care about it, Bitcoin, Web 3.0, it's going to come when it's going to come. But being a dad, I know that my kids are going to be in the era when they're actively going to be using all of that stuff. So I got to get ahead to understand it so I can teach them firsthand how it works. Man, I love it. So, Jonathan, share with us 3 hacks to take away for the audience. So I'll call my audience superpreneurs. Share with them.
Yes. Yeah. So one hack I would do, this would apply to anybody, no matter what schooling situation you're in, whether it's good or bad, whether it's public or private or homeschool or some other hybrid version charter. One thing you can do is get your kids to dedicate a blog or even a video log or an Instagram account dedicated to one particular subject that your child is interested in. So don't use it for family stuff or anything like that. I mean, they could, that's up to you. And there's other questions there about safety. But if you focus around a specific topic that your child is in, it could be as simple as like, I'm into World War II tanks. Some boys have that thing. Fine. Then have them blog, post on Instagram like once a day, some factoid that they learn about it, or some question that they have, maybe they don't have an answer to. Get them used to posting about it. And as they're posting about it, you're going to see that they're mentally wrestling with the vocabulary, the lingo of that field that they're interested in. And in the beginning, it'll probably be very cringy, right? And as they get into it, there's like, oh shoot, I made him. Somebody else will call him out who's really into it. Somebody just maybe a little more knowledgeable. It's like, no, dummy, that's a 1956 World War II tank from Korea. You mix that up with this. And it's like, oh, you're right. And then they'll say, you can tell because they didn't make this type of metal. I'm making this up. I don't know anything about tanks.
Yeah.
As they're doing this, they're going to become more aware of history, technology. And you don't really have to worry whether was my kid going to become a tank builder? No, that's not the point at that stage. They're learning to communicate clearly about something they care about. And in order to care, you have to have details. Yes. And so this is going to feed your child's mind. They're going to become articulate. You'll give them pointers as you go and say, hey, you have one long run-on paragraph. Why don't you break it up in a couple of things? You're switching thoughts here. That's something that's very common. Just very gentle. Don't worry about the spelling mistakes.
Yeah.
That will naturally, especially when somebody's like, oh my goodness, don't you know that a Bradley thing is spelt not with 2 D's, but 1 D, oh my goodness. In that field, it's important.
Yeah.
They will almost autocorrect themselves. And you can tell me, you may want to check that spelling. That's hack number 1, because wow, your child is going to wrestle with the meaning of things, become clear and articulate, and you won't even have to have a curriculum to do that. You can do it in time off. But you do as a dad, you have to in the beginning say, you know what, you like this topic. If we're gonna keep buying books on this topic, or we're gonna keep buying models, I want you to write about it. Yeah. Even if in the beginning, just take a picture, just do a caption. That'd be hack number 1.
Nice.
Right there.
I love it.
I mean, that's amazing. And it's affordable. You can do it for free practically if you want to.
Yeah.
Hack number 2 is I would really take a closer look at a lot of times education is thought strictly in terms of what you learn in a formal classroom. Even when you're not in a formal classroom, people mistakenly think, well, if it's not in a textbook with a word textbook on it, it doesn't count. You want your child to, in conversation with you, have conversations. Like I had a daughter who's now an adult, and she was really, into her art stuff. And one time she would get these little mini commissions, right, from usually old ladies. And one of the things they would like is often they would say, I want you to do my grandchildren. And my daughter's thing was to do kind of a cartoonized version Which so the reason people want a cartoonized version is so they want to emphasize the characteristics that you can't get on a camera shot. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah.
But she always turned down the ones when pets she could do. She would say yes, but whenever I noticed, like, why aren't you taking this like free money? I mean, she's like, Dad, because whenever I do it, my babies look like old men. So she stopped there. But as a dad, it's like, you know what? That's probably true. And I think I've seen that. They do look like old men. But I bet you there's someone out there who has a course on this.
Yes.
And sure enough,
there's a course.
I think the actual module was it was something almost literally how to make your babies look like babies, not old men. I mean, literally what it was.
Wow.
I just watched a couple of minutes because I was just curious.
Yeah.
And basically they said people don't understand that babies' heads are proportioned differently than adults. The eyes are at a different proportion. Mm-hmm. And it says after that, she was able to do it. Nice. So we paid, but it didn't have the word textbook. If I had heard textbook, we'd probably pulled up some over the top thing on anatomy and whatever. Mm-hmm. No, go to the good stuff is actually done by people who can clearly communicate, even in the art world. And she paid for it out of her own. She had some pocket money. Mm-hmm. She paid it out of her own pocket, so she owned it in that way. And I would say is buy courses. I don't even word course is such a heavy word. A workshop, an instructional. I mean, a YouTube video can be the same thing too. Mm-hmm. But focus specifically on overcoming a particular problem that your child has in the field he's interested in, because you will set it's micro and it's done.
Yeah.
And now you put that in their mindset, right?
And like they have a win, right? They have a win to positive.
Right. I don't have to go 4 years to college when all I want to know is to change the oil. So maybe I could go ask someone.
Yeah.
Maybe buy them lunch. Get used to that.
Yeah.
And now I can solve my problem. Most of the time people don't think like that. It's not natural for some reason.
Yeah. You're right. I love that.
And hack number 3, you need to reverse engineer your big dad goals. Like I'll talk to parents and say, well, I just want my child to be, happy or let's be more generous with terms. I want my child to be, a good communicator. And don't in your mind as a dad, you need to unpack that. What do you mean good communicator? Like they can whip out like big sob stories to send to all the relatives at Christmas? I mean, what do you want them to write the novel? Do you want them to, and then you're just like, no, I don't really want them to do that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then why are you taking this advanced lit course on unpacking Jane Austen? If you don't want them to do that now, or that you don't ever want them to do that.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Then why are you doing this? And say, well, what I really mean is, and then you'll say something more specific. Like I want them to be a good office communicator. Okay, well, that's fine. Or I want them to, whatever it is. Once you put a little more flesh to it as a dad and as a mom, usually it's you don't even know sometimes as a dad, right? You're like, what does it mean? And your wife says, hey, you're always telling me this. Oh yeah, that's what I want. Then you need to reverse engineer a lot of this stuff. It's way too abstract. You can't just say, oh, I want my kid to be educated. That's nonsense. You can't go to a job or to a friend or anybody say, hey, we need help over here. And it's like, okay, I'm coming. I'm educated. And you're like, what the heck? But do you know any code? Do you know any Unix? Do you know how to repair a car? You can't like, oh, I'm just educated. I'm like, oh, great. That's code for he doesn't know how to do anything, but he can opinionate about it. And if you do that for your education, you're going to come up with answers. It'll become, I won't say crystal clear, because for me, I'm so used to thinking like that, but it'll become way clearer. You're like, okay, this is really, science is really important to our family. That's our thing, Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean to unpack that? And so it's like, well, I want him what it really means is like, I want him to be able to look at 3 motors and right away he knows how to take it apart and then he could redesign it. Okay, well, you probably have partly your answer there. Maybe you need to sign him up right now. He's 12. Okay, he can't take apart, big things, but he can probably take a small engine course at one of the retailers, mm-hmm. right? He's going to get his hands dirty. He can put it together. He could probably buy some used one for practically nothing. And you're just like, this is the beginning. If this is important to us, he's going to get. I've met some guys like that who've gone engineer, but they already had their hands in the machine. So when they got to the theoretical, it was like I mean, the integration was immediate. If you
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have that, you can still do it, but it's a lot more of a struggle. So now you
absolutely.
unpack that. It's like, man, I'm gonna buy every used um, um, leaf blower.
Hmm.
we're gonna smash them. We're gonna take them apart. We're gonna
Take them
reassemble
apart.
them blindfolded. Now
Yeah,
you've got an answer. So what does that mean to cultivate that? So
I
reverse
love that.
engineer these big educational ideas because I think they're way too abstract, and because are not because what not I don't know what the equation is now. Is it doubling every 2 years knowledge or something? I mean,
The
it's
technology,
like,
yeah,
you can specialize in almost anything you want. So
anything,
just,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's just ad infinitum. This is way people get on this treadmill. I'm going to go for a master's, then I'm going to go for a doctorate. Oh, that doctorate,
hmm,
so I'm going to go for another doctorate. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, this is nutty. You could study all that stuff on your own anyway,
yes, you
but you
can.
never get to the production point where the joy is. And that's where you can reverse engineer and say, you know what, I want my kid maybe to go to college. Maybe I do want him to get this advanced engineering degree. But what does it make? Says, well, I know I've been in that field. I've lived in that. That means he really needs to get his hands dirty. What
Hmm.
does that mean, getting your hands dirty? Well, yeah, he can't go and Elon Musk says, hey, can I take apart your glamorous thing? It's not going to work. But there's an in between stage, and you,
There's
the
a,
dad,
yeah,
can be. We're going to hit that in between stage, and we're going to nail it. We're going to own it. You're going to love it. You're going to get dirty. I even joke with my kids, like, hey, if you lose a finger, not that I want them to, but if you lose a finger, you better Instagram that one because it shows that you've got grit and commitment and kept
exactly.
going.
Man, I love that. And what you said, you gotta get him, you gotta get him started, reverse engineer that stuff, and it immediately reminded me of how Henry Ford was working on these Westinghouse tractors at his grandfather's farm before he got hired by Westinghouse because he was so proficient good at fixing these tractors because they kept breaking down
Gotcha. So he
before
he
he even
already his
started the
mind was
company.
already working in that in
Yeah,
that sphere.
exactly. This is so
Yeah, I know.
powerful.
I know. It's like, oh, there's so many more ideas I want to try. It's like, thankfully I've got all these kids underneath me, and I would.
You got a whole
This is
company
like,
there, man. Shoot. Got every department imaginable in that
yeah,
house. That's amazing. I
and
love
it
it.
works with pretty much every personality, in the sense that that's what you do. Is you're wrestling, you're pivoting.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about, oh, if he's putting his hands in the machinery, does that mean he's going to become a mechanic? Don't worry about that. But you do have an overall goal, though. I mean, you're
Hmm.
you're 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 building on the child's strengths, and
Yeah.
then when they run into their weaknesses, you and they together, and as they get older, they make those decisions more and more on their own. They wrestle with the fact: is it worth putting the effort
Yeah.
to learn this other thing that I'm not normally? And sometimes the answer is yes,
I love
because they
that.
they say, you know what, it's worth it. I want to do this. So you'd be surprised. I'm surprised some of my kids. It's like they'll run into an obstacle in order to solve it. They take on something that I'm just like, there's no way. There's no way that they would have the inclination or the desire, but they want that other thing so bad that sometimes they wind up taking on this other skill or that they actually are good at.
Hmm.
And then they own that, and gradually the other one kind of fades in the background because the other one becomes so dominant. I'm like, that's part of the fun and the adventure.
It is. Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I mean, really,
Now,
as a dad, this is exciting. And sometimes what frustrates is like, you don't want to like, that is BS. You want to tell especially when they're 17, they tell you something and they're like, no,
no,
no, and then they make it work, and I'm like, my wife
told
goes,
you.
I can't believe it worked, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, I I didn't even believe in them.
You know what's really cool? So you're a dad of how many kids now?
9.
9 kids, right? I
Yep.
only have 4 kids, but I was thinking because my sister has 4 kids, my wife's cousin has 4 kids, and they're all in the same,
Yeah.
12 to 18 to 20, age group. And I'm like thinking they all have different talents, and this just evolved in the past couple of weeks as I've been talking to different people and I'm learning this entrepreneurship world over the past few years. And I'm like, I can't do it alone, but I need help. And if I could train these young minds in what's possible, guess what? I'm giving them an opportunity that they would not have found on their own, or maybe they would have, but it's something for them to think about instead of just going the tried and true way and be like, okay, 4 years later after college, you're like, well, my degree, I got it, but I can't find a job. So it's kind of mind blowing, and this is the perfect conversation because parent their parent their passion is something that I would totally have my sister take a look at this, and my cousin look at it, because we have so much family in California. I have a ton of cousins, ton of nephews, and cousins who have kids. So this is like just mind blowing for them to be able to have this, because we're all growing. We're all, as parents, we're continually growing and continually learning what works for each kid, and each kid of ours is different. They don't want to be like the
Yes.
other one.
No, and they're not clones. They're really, I mean, obviously
No.
they're family traits. You can tell that, but they're
Yeah.
not clones. You find that out pretty quick. And
Absolutely.
that's what's exciting about, I mean, it's exciting. Sometimes it's scary.
It is.
And,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can be, sometimes you do have a child that's so much like you that you can't put up too much with their, what they're saying.
Yeah,
Because
it's
you were
true,
thinking
because
like that at the, I
they-
already
they-
know what you're thinking.
Because they're growing up watching us do the
Yeah.
thing that we do, so they're gonna
Yeah.
copy all of that. I'm like, oh crap, I did that too. And what's funny is that my mom was telling me the other day, like, oh, you have 3 boys. I mean, you're gonna have 3 daughter-in-laws. I'm like, oh snap, I didn't even think about that. I'm like
Yep.
so far removed from that. Wow.
No,
Anyways,
there's some exciting stuff out there,
Yeah.
and there are some there are some things you can do where you're not just telling, hey, have a passion. That doesn't work like that, because
no.
just like us as adults, we get overwhelmed. It's like, well, yeah, I'd love to, bungee jump or something, but or but they don't know what that means. They just saw
Right.
it on TV, and you're like, okay, do I really want to do that? Do I just want a photo op? Or,
Yeah.
or do I, they don't know. And that's where you as a parent can really go in there,
Yeah.
because you love them and you care, and you don't want them to stay at that level. But they can't, for them, they can't necessarily. It would be nice if they could figure all that out, have the same wisdom that you had after all these years,
Yeah.
but they don't. This is why kids have a hard time sometimes.
Exactly.
Or maybe they're not even disobedient or anything, but they're just frustrated or
They're
depressed.
just frustrated, yeah.
Sometimes they're depressed, I think, partly because they're not exercising their potential, which is maybe very different than yours or the sibling. But I truly believe they have a potential. And if you can unleash that, it's going to solve a lot of problems, because it is true. We want our kids to be happy.
Yes.
I mean, I will say that. Yeah, I want my kids to be happy. But I also recognize happiness comes in great part by feeling like you're accomplishing something
yeah.
beautiful in life. And in order to accomplish something beautiful in life, you got to put the work in. That's part of that whole. If you
That's
want
part-
abs, you got to lay off the chocolate cake.
Got the chocolate. Yeah, exactly. The muffins and the cookies. Dude, it's been so much fun. Let's jump right into the 6 questions that I love to ask my guest.
All right.
What is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
Bookbinding.
Oh yeah, you mentioned bookbinding.
Yeah.
Why
I love
that
books.
specifically?
Well, you know what it is? I always found it fascinating. Of course, I haven't acted on it. Is the idea of out of print books that I really like the subject, but they're just not a popular enough subject. But the cover is falling apart. I would look to I've seen where you can rebind it, but put extra blank pages in there so you can put your notes in there.
Yeah.
So turn it into sort of a unique thing that kind of grows over time, either with notes or the rebinding. So that's kind of just a little bit of a fantasy
that's
there.
fun.
It's like,
That's fun. I've bound some. So back in the days, we used to have computer printer paper that had holes on either side.
Yeah, I remember that.
So my dad used to bring all these papers, and what I started doing is they were not 8.5 by 11. They were like much wider. I think 11 by 17 even. So I would fold them in half, and then I've got holes on one side.
Brilliant.
And then what I did is I used fish wire to bind like a ton of pages together, and I would just write poems and put stickers of cars and stuff like that.
That's
So
beautiful.
I had like a few different books.
But would
And
you
this is
split?
like-
You just split the paper on the other end because it'd be folded. You didn't have to slit them open.
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah, so you fold it, so the end side where it had all the holes would be where I would do the
Together.
fish line. Yeah,
But
and
then
then the
on the
other side is
opposite
just
side, if you're
folded.
folding it, it's closed. Wouldn't you have to slit it open then?
No, I don't, because it had some kind of print stuff on one side and the other side was blank.
Okay.
So then I just used the outer sides, and that way you know if you're using ink or whatever, it won't show through either. So
Gotcha.
kind of like a thicker page, but
Okay.
it worked out pretty good. I made these like 30 plus years ago, and I found them in my parents' home the
Nice.
other day. I was like, this is cool.
It's cool.
I had a book that I made just to write down names of movies because I wanted to see movies. It's funny.
That's
All right,
nice.
next question. What did you want to be when you were a child?
Politician.
Ooh,
Literally.
literally a politician.
Yeah.
Interesting. Where'd
Yeah.
you grow up?
I grew up in France. I was an American, but I grew up in
Okay.
France. So my
Okay.
parents were American, but they lived in France. And so at that time, also, we had friends that worked sort of undercover in the communist countries and stuff, and just a bunch of stuff. So I was very aware of all the political situation. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was maybe when I look back, it seemed normal when I was a kid, but I guess it wasn't.
That's
And I'm
probably
not a politician now. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Next question. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
Actually, you said TV
Or how
show.
about a book? Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so much,
Yeah,
but
there's
I will say a fun one, and I've only found a few other people get as excited about it. But it's
okay.
the from the 1980s. There was a series of two series. Actually, one became successful, and then they continued with another one. It's called Yes Minister, and then later Yes Prime Minister. So
Mm,
minister as in a British minister politician. Hence, you can see the continuity here.
yeah.
But what it was a very sophisticated, not slapstick at all, but humorous.
Mm,
And essentially, it was an expose against the runaway bureaucracy. And one of my favorite episodes, I mean, there's so many good ones in
yeah.
there. One of my favorite episodes is where the minister, and they're all playing their little shenanigans,
Yeah.
and they're trying to checkmate each other. We're not, no substantial change happens because everybody's posturing all the time, constantly. And of course they're saying things that don't have meaning, but yet they're. One of them is the minister says, I'm going to get a photo. He's obsessed about photo op opportunities. So he says he finds out. He gets a report from one of his bureaucracy managers saying, "Oh, we got this amazing hospital. You know, the we've got zero mortality rate. We've got just on and on beautiful stats trying to justify their budget." And he's like, "Oh, this is great. I got to go there and get a photo op opportunity." And then from then on, most of the show, they're trying to dissuade him. They're trying to persuade him not to go, and he's like completely baffled. Well, don't you want me? This is great. It makes your agency look great. It makes me
Yeah.
look great. I'm going to get reelected. Eventually, it comes out that there are no patients at this hospital.
Of
And
course.
so, and he's like baffled. It's like, well, how can there be no patients at a hospital? You've got like 40 doctors,
Yeah.
you've got janitors, you've got all these supplies. He says, well, if we get patients in there, our statistics are going to go down and not look as good. So he's like completely like, what the heck? And so, I mean, it's some absurd
That is so funny.
where the bureaucracy exists for itself and not for serving people. But I mean, it's
Wow.
just to me, I'm rolling, you know, from morning until night, and there's just one thing after another like that. So maybe
So
I've
this
grown up in Europe too. I'm more aware.
so
of the
this show is on
bureaucracy.
BBC or
Yeah, it was put out maybe by the BBC. It's
okay.
available. I don't know. Maybe it's on YouTube now. I mean,
We'll
this
check
is
it out.
1980s.
Okay.
So this would have been it's Yes Minister, and then he eventually gets elected Prime Minister because all the top dogs who are way better than him are so mad at each other. They elect the least competent person, which is him. He doesn't. So he's kind of like the one that everyone can live with because he's so incompetent. And then he eventually starts learning the ropes.
That's so funny. It's almost like what they did when Showtime, was it Showtime or HBO did Veep, and what's her name played the role, Elaine Bennis from
I haven't seen
Seinfeld. I
that
can't
one.
remember.
No. Is it similar? Were there?
It's kind of similar because she's a vice president, first female vice president. Right now, she wants to, she's running, and she then becomes the prime minister. And there's all sorts of like similar kind of politics stuff happening, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Because it matches the corporate world in so many ways.
It does.
You promote somebody that you don't want, so you can screw another team because so you promote him. It's like you recommend him to another team. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
You recommend someone who's very difficult to another team to get him off your team and simultaneously kind of ruin the other team because you can't fire him. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff going on.
They get promoted and now they're like above you. I'm like, what just happened?
What just happened?
Our next question: what movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's a. If I got to play the character in it, wow!
Any character in any movie?
Yeah, probably any kind of Cold War spy movie would be fun.
Cold War spy movie. So
there's so many of them out there.
Maybe one of the James Bond. I don't know if Saving Private Ryan was from a Cold War.
No, not a war movie.
No,
not a war movie.
Okay.
More of a more of a mind game movie.
Cold War mind game. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. So kind of like war games.
Maybe. I think one of the funny ways to say it, one of the hopscotch was one of my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, where it's an aging spy master on the American side who's stationed in Europe, and it's the height of the Cold War, and he's very good at finding moles and stuff. And it's a comedy. It's not really a comedy, but there's an underlying comedic tone. So it's not a dark one. And somebody in that example, somebody much more incompetent than him gets promoted. And he's got a personal vendetta against him. So he benches him. It's like, you're going to be taking the desk now. You're going to come home. And of course, he does not want to do this. And there's some bad blood between them over the years.
Of course.
And it turns out that this guy is super incompetent. There's been a lot of blunders that people have died and because he didn't know what he was doing and he's arrogant. So he gets into his mind, the hero of the show, that he's going to write a memoir exposing all the stupid stuff that the agency, I don't know if it was the CIA or some other fictional agency. Okay. And he starts sending a chapter at a time to each of the heads of the spy. So they're going nuts. So they're all, we got to terminate this guy. So anyways, so the people below him that he's trained are hunting for him, but they're kind of like him at the same time. And they're all like, why is he sending us these chapters ahead of time? So it's one big mind game. And in the end, it all works out.
Yeah.
He supposedly dies, which of course he doesn't. And the guys below him like, please stay dead, and it's kind of like settling scores between people, but it's hilarious. It's just a lot of mind games, a lot of hopscotching, as they call it, kids game.
Love it.
That's what I would like to play in.
Nice. I like that. Walter Matthews and Glenda Jackson, Sam Waterston.
It's worth watching.
We'll check it out. I think it's you can rent it on Amazon Prime right now.
Probably.
All right, sweet. Next question: who is your favorite superhero?
Oh my goodness, favorite superhero. I got sick of them.
You got sick of them?
They pamper them too much. They're not superheroes anymore. Spider-Man. Good old classic. Nothing too weird.
Nothing.
Yeah, I like that original. I don't know why he's like barely in his late teens or right out of college trying to figure it out. He's got these skills, but he's not really sure what is he supposed to do.
What's he supposed to be doing?
What does it mean?
What am I doing? I love it, man. That's awesome. Last question. If you were a board game, what would it be?
Monopoly. Just good old fashioned fun.
I was thinking Risk.
You know what I don't like about Risk? I think I've played before. It goes on forever.
Well, so does Monopoly.
That's true. But you know why? Probably because I always speed it up. You hand out some
Like, all right,
hand out some of the properties.
everybody can have a
Yeah,
house
yeah.
now. Okay, here's
Yeah,
everybody.
I don't quite have that patience. Maybe that's why. Maybe
Fail
if I played
fast.
Risk the same way.
Failing fast. All right, sweet. I love it. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time. It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot, and I've had a lot of questions in my mind about what to get my kids into for summer. And my wife has recently texted me. She's like, "Oh, look, they have basketball camp over here. Let's send them there." And I didn't grow up playing sports. I don't very much play sports or watch sports. So I was like, I don't know, because I want them to go into, the YouTube economy to, work on their own craft, because they have a YouTube channel. And I just got this course from Pat Flynn, and it's called YouTube from Scratch. So I'm like super excited to get them to watch this, because they have their YouTube channel. They want to get to 100,000 subscribers. Pat Flynn did it in 10 months. I'm like, okay, he's teaching everything here. So that's something that I want to get. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you shared in the episode that's like getting my wheels turning, and I want to take a look at their passion concept.
Well, let me recommend, and
Yeah.
this is for your listeners too. If you go to parenttheirpassion.com, right on the main page, you can it'll be right smack dab. It's called an interest worksheet, and it's several pages, and you walk through it yourself, and it's going to be a series of 4 exercises. 3 of them are going to make you do a list of stuff that's in your family, and by the end you finish, you're going to have an actionable term. So what you're telling me, for example, the possibility of a YouTube channel, etc., there's a couple more ingredients you can add to it that you already have. I don't know what it is until I would see your list.
Yeah,
that's gonna say we got to do this. We got to do this, because you'll find that actually an interest by itself is not powerful enough to sustain that momentum.
Gotta have that why.
Yeah, you don't want to be. I mean, it's okay to do something where you're kind of carrying their tools all the time, but that's not where you want to be. It's draining. You want to be in a situation where your child's like, he's got this interest, but it's not enough by itself. Most of the time, it's just not enough. They're too young and experienced. But you add a couple more ingredients that's in your social environment, your family, and it's going to be so powerful. It's gonna boom, and it's free. Take it, download it, and go through the exercises. I think you're going to be blown away. You have more than one option, but one of them will probably pop out, and in that case, you'll probably want to list, YouTube channel and interest. That'll be one of the ingredients.
Yeah.
But you need at least a couple others that you already have, because it's important that they're already in your social environment, because that's what will give it its power.
Well, thank you for that. I will go ahead and check out Identifying My Child's Talent, because that's your free guide. So that was the last question. Where can superpreneurs find you? And guys, check out parenttheirpassion.com. Right, that's where that's at.
Yes.
What other places do you communicate? Are you on LinkedIn?
I'm on
social media?
Instagram.
Okay.
Parent Their Passion. Look me up there. And
Awesome.
I'm also on Facebook. But the best place to be for right now, I think, is if you can get on my website, get the free download, because I'll have your email in order for you to get it. And then I'm going to start sending you, within a couple of days, you're going to start getting, every few days, you're going to get an amazing tip, an insight as to what makes it work. You're going to get examples. I got tons of those. I mean, it'll be really fun. I think the first one that you'll get will show you, it's actually an Apple ad, a really good one. And it shows a kid, he looks like he's on his phone the whole time, not participating in some kind of like family Christmas event,
like
or something.
Christmas event,
And you'll find out there's a complete turnaround, and you'll see why. And it just beautifully encapsulates it.
I love that. I remember watching that video when it first came out, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's the power of smartphones.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time again. This was a lot of fun. And we'll catch you in the next one, man. Take care.
Oh, I love it. This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode on Hacks and Hobbies. We absolutely appreciate your contribution. You can find additional notes on hacksandhobbies.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and tell them what you learned about our guest today.